Hey, you fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And this is episode 151.
Have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension?
Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow, so the TARDIS should be free of the force field now.
There's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
The trouble with time travel is, one never seems to find the time.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc.
I am the Doctor!
Great men are forged in fire. It is the privilege of lesser men to light the flame.
I'm the Doctor. This is Rose Tyler. She's my +1. Is that all right?
That would be me.
Hello. Surprise.
Boom.
Etc.
I'm the Doctor. Do everything I tell you. Don't ask stupid questions. And don't wander off.
How can you kidneys? I don't like the colour.
Howdy do, Who fans? It's episode 151, which is upon us. Adam and I are kind of awake. Not as sleepy as we were from the weekend.
No.
Yeah.
Almost back to being human again.
Almost.
Not quite.
Yeah, it does sap your energy a wee bit. Yes. Those of you that don't know, we were at London Film and Comic Con at the weekend, and it was a full-on weekend, especially the Saturday. That was knackering. So, yes. I don't know about you, mate, but I was shot to bits.
I was shot to bits.
Yeah,
I was going to say I was shot to bits at the end of Saturday. Saturday was mad. I absolutely loved the whole weekend, though, mate. I don't know about you. I was sat on the train on the Sunday night, rattling my way home with just a massive grin on my face, and my eyes were half shut. I probably looked like I was completely out of it. But it was full on, wasn't it? I mean, Saturday we knew it was going to be busy because the Saturday actually sold out, didn't it?
It did. Yes.
Whereas the Sunday was selling well, but they still had tickets. But my goodness, what a weekend!
Blimey, yeah, it was action packed to say the least. Yeah, and we had, I think, the Saturday was our busiest day because we had the most amount of photo shoots and things like that booked in, and then Sunday was relatively chilled. We had a few in still, but it was relatively chilled. I'm
glad we managed to get in a couple of talks this time because I without blowing my own trumpet, was much more organised this time. I had my phone out every 2 minutes, didn't I, checking my schedule, and I'd made a note of the times, which I forgot to do last year. So last year I didn't get to go to any talks, but this year just scraped into the Sylvester McCoy, didn't I? You got there, and I literally got there as he was getting going, and that was such a good talk. I thought Sylvester was on really good form. It was just him on his own. And he did like a bit of a sort of one-man show, didn't he? Rather than just standing on the stage and just, chatting to people, he actually got involved with the whole audience, and he was walking round, and every time someone answered a question, he was fighting his way through, the seats to get to them, to hold the mic to them. And it just made it so much more interesting, having him just walking around the room and chatting, because everyone was sort of cranking their necks following him round, weren't they? It was just really funny. I was just watching everyone, and but I thought he was really good, didn't you? I thought he was quite honest in his answers. He was also quite funny in his answers. He was sort of pretty quick with the coming up with a funny response when it was needed. But like when he was asked about his thoughts on a female doctor, he didn't sort of shy away from saying, his thoughts on it, which were basically that he basically said his initial thoughts were he didn't really want a female doctor, but when it was announced, he was quite excited by it, and he sort of changed his mind, and he thinks actually it's going to be a good thing. But he sort of went into a bit more detail, but that was the gist of it, wasn't it? That he felt the Doctor was a male character and it should remain a male character, but he sort of come round to the idea after Jodie was cast and thinks that she's going to be amazing. I think is the gist of it. I don't want to misquote him after the whole Peter Davison debacle. I don't want to get Silva into trouble here, but I think that's pretty much what he was saying. Would you say?
Yes, I agree with that. Yes, it was. He was. Yeah, just what you said. Really, he wasn't really up for it before, but then in a similar way that we were, I think
it's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, we weren't sort of too fussed. Well, not too fussed, but we weren't over the moon at the idea of a female doctor for a while. But then somehow, I'm not sure, when Jodie was announced, and it just seems really cool. Yeah. So, but he was so good, Sylv, because we went to a talk earlier, and that was for Lala Ward and
Mark Strickson and that other guy who was in Robot Sherwood. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Rusty, somebody.
Yeah.
The wee chap, yeah. And that was very formal, that you would expect one of those talks where they were just sat on stage and there was an interviewer and he was asking them, the usual questions around, your time on the show, on Doctor Who and all that stuff. But when Sylv walked in, the guy that was going to be asking him questions, he told him to sit down and have a rest.
Yeah.
And then he spent the rest of the time just, like you said, walking around. He was even going down the rows and sat next to people, and very, very engaging, really cool.
I couldn't see him because Sylv told him to sit down, but was the interviewer the same guy with Sylvester as it was with Lala and Mark?
No.
Was it the same bloke? Oh, okay. Because Lala scolded him big time. I mean, don't mess with Lala Ward, whatever you do. Because he told them off for being late, didn't he, when they first walked on stage or something? Am I remembering that right? Didn't he say something when they walked on stage? Oh, they're here finally or something, and she was like, "Well, no one come to get us," and she sort of cut him dead.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I've met Lala a couple of times now, and do you know what? I really like her now. I remember when I first met Lala Ward, and she's very short, very sharp-tongued sometimes, and quite direct, isn't she? And I mistook her for being quite rude when I first met her. I was a bit like, oh, don't know about her. But as I've met her a couple of times over the years, and the more I see her in interviews, I realise actually she's a really lovely woman. And I did meet her that weekend for an autograph and photo, and she was lovely. And I've just got to realise that she's not rude. She's just very direct, and she will tell you her thoughts, which is great when when she's being interviewed, because she doesn't sort of mince her words when it comes to talking about her time on the show, especially when it comes to talking about Tom Baker. She's very honest. She's a really good guest actually, and I really enjoyed meeting her again at this event. And Mark Strickson was very nice as well. I think he had a really massive queue to meet him. Actually, I didn't realise that Turlo was such a popular companion, to be honest with you. But it was great to see all the classic guys getting lots of attention and not just sat there talking to the person next to him because there's no one in the queue. I mean, I think you'll agree with me. All of the classic guys that we saw at the event. So there was Matthew Waterhouse, Nicola Bryant, Richard Franklin, Mark Strickson, obviously Lala Ward, John Leeson. All their queues were really, really, long queues. There was people wanting to meet. And the reason I say I'm surprised about that was because you've got to think this event had a lot. And I mean a lot of big guests. So you got people like Benedict Cumberbatch, John Cleese, loads of people. Who's the guy that's in Doctor Strange? Michael something. There's loads of big names there, basically. Pamela Anderson and lots and lots of big names. So there was a lot going on. But it was just really nice to see, this little section of the Who corner just getting so much love. And they were, everybody I met, I don't know about you, was in really good spirits. Like everybody seemed to be really chatty, friendly, up for selfies and all that sort of stuff. And I saw, just was a really good buzz, really.
It was. And I'm really glad that Doctor Who really kind of took over certain areas of the convention as well, because like you say, there were some really big names there, really big sort of current Hollywood past and present stars. And but when the classic guys were there was one exception, and it was only for a short while, but so when Sylvester McCoy was sat down signing photos, there were a few times where there was literally no, because he was in between.
Oh, do you remember when I first got there? And I said to you, he was, Bernie Cribbins was to his left and had a massive queue. Yeah. And who was to his right? Somebody else.
It wasn't a Who person. No, it was.
No, but it was somebody who had a really big queue.
Somebody from Game of Thrones. It was.
Yeah, so there was two massive queues, and I said to you, didn't I? Because when I got in, I didn't find you for about an hour, and I said, "Oh, I've just seen Sylvester in between these two long queues." I said he only had one person in his queue, and he was dressed as Colin Baker. But his queue did liven up later on. But I was worried for Sylv at one point. Yeah,
it was great because when you were off doing a photo, that was when his queue there was nobody there. So I wandered up and had a nice little chat with him because there was nobody behind me.
Yeah, if you time it right at those things, that is the good thing, because obviously a lot of the time they're off doing talks and photo shoots or whatever, and very often if you get them when they come back, the table's been empty for like 20 minutes, half an hour. So if you time it right, it could be you can have a good old chat with them.
Yeah, so with the exception of that little period there for Sylve, it was really, really good to see the other stars of Doctor Who. Or classic Doctor Who getting a lot of love, because some of the queues were massive. I remember on Sunday when Nicola Bryant was there. Well, I got to the venue late that day because the Thameslink trains were very handily all cancelled because one of the red lights wouldn't turn on somewhere down the track.
Our transport's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful, yeah. So I got there quite late, and when I arrived, the queue for Nicola Bryant was massive. Yeah. Absolutely huge, and she was really lovely. And the day before, though, when I had my photo shoot with Sylvester on the TARDIS console, that queue was just, it was massive. He was sold out, Sylve, straight away. So it was just so good to see, in all like the current TV series that are going on at the minute, like Game of Thrones and all that stuff, and Benedict Cumberbatch, all those people that are super popular. It was great to see the classic guys getting a lot of love, and the queue is really big. So, because we were there mainly for Who, let's be honest. But
yeah. I was going to say there was a couple. Yeah, I was going to say there were a couple of new guests. So I got to meet David Morrissey. Obviously, played the, what was he called? Jackson Lake. I forgot the name there. Yeah. But the next Doctor. When you're sort of not sure what a person's going to be like, because often they play a very sort of harsh character. Yeah. So I wasn't sure what he'd be like. But he was really, really nice when I met him. And it took me a little bit by surprise. And it's always good when they're nice and chatty, because, sometimes they're not always, sometimes you can't wait to meet someone and they don't say two words to you. But David Morrissey was a real delight to meet. He was really chatty, asking where I was, where I'd come from and what, who I'd met that day. And he said, "Oh, who are you off to meet now?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm going for a photo shoot with David Bradley." Actually, he's like, "David Bradley? Oh, he's a legend. Make sure you say hello from me." He's goes, he's really sort of warm, friendly person to meet. So, and David Bradley, mate, probably the highlight of the day for me was getting a picture of him, because he was having so much fun in his photo shoot. Like a lot of them with Benedict Cumberbatch, I'm not exaggerating when I say I blinked and I was gone, because I was so worried that my photo, I was going to have my eyes shut, because I literally stood next to him, blinked and went to smile, but it was done. Like I didn't even have time to breathe with him. So that was that. But with David Bradley, he was having so much fun with the people in the queue. A lot of people were asking him to do the whole William Hartnell lapel holding pose and stuff, and he was doing a lot of that. And he was just really smiley and engaging with people, which in these photo studio things, they push you through really quick. You don't really get a chance to even get to know them normally. But it was a great atmosphere in his shoot, and a lot of people were asking him to do stuff from, I assume, like the Lord of the Rings or something. But he kept going into this sort of, strangling people pose, and it was just brilliant. Just while I was waiting for my photo, just watching doing all these different things with people in the shoot. It was fantastic. Actually, it was a real highlight for me. And Louise Jameson, I mustn't forget her as well.
Oh,
she was really lovely. And I got to tell her that we, about the podcast and how we used to hate the Sunmakers, which is her favourite story. But one that we both thought was rubbish until we rewatched it. And then we both really liked it, didn't we? So I got to have a real good old chat with her about that. And she was saying, she was pleased that we'd changed our opinion. And I just said to her, I think it's one that you have to be in the mood for, and you have to sort of, if you watch it properly, it's a great story. So yeah, she was lovely to meet as well. I think that's it. I mean, it was just a really good day. We met up with loads of WhoTubers and stuff, didn't we? And things like that. So it's quite a big group of us. Yeah,
we met loads of people there. Actually, there were just some really nice random people who had stopped and said, "Oh, listen to your podcast. It's really good." That's always nice. And we met up with some other podcasters and YouTubers. It was great atmosphere. Really, really cool.
It was a really good atmosphere. Yeah.
It's just if anyone's not been to some of the larger Comic-Cons, like the MCM one in London or this one at the Olympia, they're hectic and they're busy, and it's knackering, and your feet hurt afterwards. And your voice, my voice, I was hoping to do some recording, some interviews on the Sunday, but I just couldn't because my voice was gone. I literally was to the point where, because I was shouting so much throughout all of Saturday because it's really noisy in there, and ended up just chatting throughout the whole day anyway. I just couldn't. So Yeah, apologies that there's no audio interviews or anything from the weekend, but Saturday was so busy and Sunday I couldn't talk. So
yeah,
there we go. But it was an awesome weekend.
It really was, mate. It really was, and I can't wait to do it all again. It's like anything. I love it when you get like when we got out there on the Sunday and stuff, and the Sunday was more chilled, wasn't it? So it wasn't as busy, but it was still busy.
Mm-hmm.
But that feeling of coming out and being like, I've done it all, and then I'm already like the next day I'm like, I can't wait for the next one now. I'll tell you the only thing was on the Sunday I got so close to getting David Bradley's autograph because he was so busy all day, and I don't know what's going on with his queuing system. And this is nothing. It's not his fault, but whatever was going on with the organisation was shot to bits with his queue, wasn't it? Because it didn't change from 1 to 20 all day.
That's right.
The ticket thing. We was like, what's going on? So anyway, I managed to get in the queue, and I was with Charlie, one of our listeners who we'd met up with earlier, and his dad. And this is right at the end of the day, and I had 2 photo shoots left. So right at the end of the day, I had a shoot with Louise Jameson and Matthew Wardhouse, and I was like, I've got 5 minutes to get to this shoot. Admittedly, it was only like 2 minutes away, the actual photo booth. And I had about 8 people in front of me. And I was just like, come on. And I was just thinking, can I do this? Can I get his autograph and get to the shoot? And of course, it got to 20 past, and I just couldn't leave it any longer. And it was murder. I was so close to getting to him.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, I shoved some money in Charlie's hand and said, if you can, grab me his autograph, mate, and I'll see you here afterwards. So I ran off to the shoot, and when I come out, I couldn't find Charlie anywhere. I was like, where's Charlie gone? Couldn't find him anywhere. And didn't know if he'd managed to get it until the next day when I got a message from him saying, I couldn't find you anywhere. And I was like, no, and I couldn't find you anywhere. He's like, I got your autograph. But he lives a million miles away, so he's going to post it to me, which is very, very kind of him. So
fab.
I did, yeah. So, but it was killing me being in that queue. I was just like so close, and I was like, oh, do I miss out on a photo shoot at Matthew Waterhouse to meet David Bradley, or bearing in mind I'd already paid for it, because I know a lot of people probably would have preferred to meet David Bradley, but I was just like, I paid for it, I've got to go. Yeah. Anyway, it's all worked out good.
It has. It's all good. So that was our weekend.
Yes.
Hope you guys had a cracking week and did something.
Doctor Who wise.
Yes. Waving to new listeners, because we had because when we came back for episode 150, we had a bunch of people saying, glad you're back, X, Y, and Z, but that also had a knock-on effect. We bagged a load of new followers and listeners, so if you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Grizzled Ancients, welcome back. Welcome back aboard the TARDIS. Aboard the flying TARDIS. My voice is still gone a little bit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's still a little, isn't it? Yeah.
Coming up in today's show, we're going to rattle through. It's very light on news. Because this always happens, isn't it? Whenever Doctor Who goes off the screens, when the current series finishes, it all sort of dries up a little bit until we have some announcements and leaks and all that jazz for the next episode, which will be the Christmas one. Not that we're into leaks and rumours here, but that seems to be the way of things with Who. So we are having a little bit of a break now for a few months, so it's good that you're with us. Because I remember back when things like this, remember when Star Wars did this? Remember when there was absolutely nothing between Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace? Years and years of nothing. The only thing that you had really was, I think there was a Star Wars magazine that was going throughout the time, and there was the odd video game and stuff, but it's known as the dark times, isn't it?
The dark times, yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty much the same with Who. I mean, we went through this for a whole year almost, didn't we? When there was no Hugh. Who's Hugh?
Hugh.
Hugh. When there was no Hugh on TV. When there was no Who. So, we're glad that you're with us, new listeners and old listeners, because hopefully we're providing some kind of Who entertainment while it's a bit dry out there.
Yeah.
And a bit dark. Desolate. Barren. Anyways, news is coming up. Bit of merch. Then we're going to announce our giveaway. So last week on the show, you would have heard us announce the cool prize of the Series 2 Blu-ray steelbook.
Beautiful steelbook it is.
Indeed, which was provided very kindly by our friends at zoom.co.uk. So we're going to announce a winner for that after the news and merch. And then on to our review. Yes.
Dear.
Now, my child. Yes. Of the Ark. The Ark. First Doctor. We haven't done a First Doctor in a while.
No, it's good to see a bit of First Doctor, actually. Yeah.
Indeed. So, with all that said, shall we land it and do the news?
Okay.
First up, our only bit of news, actually, and this is a bit of a strange one. And the auction website, eBay, has given us some data on which Doctor is the most popular on their website. So I'm assuming this is any listing that's on eBay that has referenced a Doctor. So whether that's a DVD or an action figure or a book or something like that. So they looked at nearly 6,000 listings. So I know they looked at a lot more than that, but the Doctor that topped the list, because they did like Colin Baker will love this, but they did a list of like the most popular Doctors listed on eBay, and with nearly 6,000 listings, and this was on the 19th of July. The Doctor that topped it was David Tennant.
Surprise.
Which is not much of a surprise, is it? So, yeah. So there was. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but because would they count for things like group listings? If somebody was selling like a bunch of figures that had, would they count that as well, and just reference all the other ones? I'm not sure, but yeah. So David Tennant has topped the list with nearly 6,000 listings on that day. Bringing up the rear, and I'm sure he'll love this, as you said earlier, mate.
Do the voice.
Is Colin Baker.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to do Tom Baker. Yes, yeah. It's Colin Baker.
Change, my dear. So, yeah, bringing up the rear is Colin Baker. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to hear that. And there was a couple of surprises in this list, you know. And I'm not sure if it's because of opinion or because of lack of merchandise. I'm not sure. But second from last, it's Paul McGann. And third from last is Pat Troughton.
Now that I am surprised about.
Yes. Mr. Hartnell in next. Davison, then Pertwee, then Matt Smith, then Peter Capaldi. Second place was Tom Baker, and then first place David Tennant.
David Tennant, yeah. It's no surprise, is it? Because I mean, when the show was come back and in its at its peak, there was so much David Tennant merchandise everywhere. So I'm kind of not surprised. I mean, you used to go into sort of supermarkets and good old Woolworths when it was still on the high street, and it was just everywhere at one point, wasn't it, during the David Tennant years?
It was everywhere.
So I'm not surprised he's got the most merch. Poor old Colin Baker at the bottom of the list, though. But fear not, Colin, because bizarrely, the very last thing I bought off eBay, which was last week, was a Colin Baker related item. So don't worry, Colin, I'm fighting your corner. I know you hate lists, and especially when you're at the bottom of them, but yeah, I bought the theme tune, like the 7-inch single they used to put out with Colin's sleeve, his picture on the front. So I'll put a picture on my Geeks handbag this week. I've got 4, 5 and 6 now. I wanted to get all the theme tunes with their picture sleeve, so yeah, so I've just got Colin's. So I'm fighting his corner on eBay. Yeah. That's knocked him up to 2 sales.
I'm sure that'll make the difference. Unsurprising seeing Tom Baker in second place as well.
Yeah.
I think when we went through our top 5s last week, you did say, didn't you, there was so much good stuff in Tom's era that it's difficult to look at elsewhere for some other good stuff. So, and there's lots of Tom merchandise as well. Whenever, speaking of conventions, actually, you always see people in Tom's scarf at least.
Yeah.
Even if they're not wearing anything else, it's the scarf that you always see and all that stuff. So, yes.
Yes, we did see a lot of Colin Baker cosplay at LFCT, didn't we? I think you commented on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people, going as Colin.
Yes.
Well, what's the last thing you bought off eBay, Doctor Who wise, or don't you really use it for Doctor Who?
Oh, the last thing. I don't really use eBay that much at all anymore.
Oh right, okay.
The last Doctor Who thing I bought, I think. Oh, do you know what? I can't even remember. I think it. It was. It was. It was a David Tennant figure with Martha and the TARDIS that came out along with that range of figures.
Oh right, okay.
And that was about 2 and a bit years ago. So that was the last time I ordered anything Doctor Who off eBay.
That's why he's number one.
That's why he's number one. Yeah, and so just to finish up on some more figures from eBay. There was 190,000 listings for Doctor Who on the 19th of July, which is huge. And this is incredible, but a sonic screwdriver sells at least once every hour on eBay. And so that's in the last 3 months. A sonic screwdriver was sold once an hour.
Wow.
So it's clear that people are still hungry for the old merch. Which brings us nicely onto merch.
Oh, Dalek Tat's been in storage for weeks.
He's furious.
I was going to say, I bet he's absolutely steaming, isn't he?
Well, let's see what he's got to say.
Go on then.
Merch corner. Merch corner. Merch corner.
I don't know whether to be impressed or disgusted.
It's a bit rubbish, but it's pretty. It's very pretty.
He doesn't sound very different.
No, he doesn't, no.
It's because I gave him a backhander earlier. So I don't want your mood spoiling the show this week.
Don't want him turning into one of those, like the Dalek from Remembrance, just steam coming out of him and spinning around, getting all stroppy.
Yeah, well, as soon as I saw him this morning, I was like, here we go. Here we go. I thought he's in one of his moods. But yeah, a couple of swift ones sorted that out. Right, first bit of merch. This is one that I have not heard of these before. You probably have, buddy, but I've not heard of this before. So the Beeb are to release the Doctor Who audio annual, featuring audio versions of vintage tales published in the 1960s through to the 1980s. So released this December. It features stories from the first 6 Doctors, read by stars of the show: Peter Purves, Annika Wilkes, Geoffrey Beevers, Matthew Waterhouse, and Nicola Bryant.
Oh,
yeah. So the bit of blurb that accompanies this says, for 2 decades, from the mid-60s to the 80s, every fan of the Doctor hoped to find the Doctor Who annual in their Christmas stocking. Larger than life and twice as colourful, the stories within were exuberant and charmingly naive in their take on the children's own programme, which adults adore. So I'm assuming what they've done is they've plucked a load of stories that featured in the Doctor Who annual from that time period, and they've got somebody to read them out.
Yes, that sounds like it. I don't think they've done this before, mate.
They haven't?
No,
Okay.
This is new to me. No, I must admit, I saw this on the list earlier in the week, just the cover. I didn't take any notice of it at all. I was just like, yeah, another CD coming out from the BBC. It wasn't until you put it on the news list that I've really taken a look at it. I actually think it sounds a pretty cool idea, actually, because I love the early, the comic strips in the early annuals, because the artwork's so way out in the 60s ones. It's brilliant. Obviously, you won't get the artwork in this, but I think it's quite a nice idea, actually. Yeah, to get, especially as you got some of the classic companions like Annika Wills or Peter Purves, reading it. I think it's quite a nice idea. It's something different, let's put it that way. So I kind of feel bad for overlooking it initially, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think they're trying something a bit different with it. So I'll probably get this. Yeah, quite like the sound of it.
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty cool, and I love the cover for it. I
love the cover. Yeah,
it's new, but they've done it in a very retro, sort of 70s style, I would say. It's got a really old Doctor Who comic strip bit of artwork on there, but it's, the rest of it's distressed and it looks like it's just been found in a garage somewhere.
Yeah.
But it does look very cool, and it's I think the only place to order it at the moment is on Amazon, and it's £13.
£13.
which is not too bad. And it's out on December the 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be right.
Yeah, I'll put that on my Christmas list. Right, in other merch, let's have these other 2 bits off Dalek's tray. It's a couple of SDD exclusive Titans, actually, that have... I always think this is strange, so maybe you can explain to me. So they make something as an SDCC exclusive.
Yes.
But then they sell it afterwards, so it's not actually exclusive. But they are fairly limited, I assume.
Yeah, I think...
Is it just whatever they don't sell at the event, they then... sell?
No, I think it's a bit of a strange one when you have these convention exclusives. I think it more relates to the time period rather than availability. Right. So it's exclusive to that convention while the convention's going on. So people can get them early, but then they're up for sort of general sale weeks or months afterwards.
Okay, well, that makes sense. And I'm kind of pleased, actually, because as you and I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, I do love Titans. And these are quite nice. They're the slightly bigger size as well, so they're 4.5 inch. First one's the Pandorica TARDIS. So basically, it's a very distressed-looking TARDIS. It's got no writing on it, but it's got the sort of Leonardo da Vinci style flame painting on it. Hopefully the listeners know what I mean, but it's so there's no TARDIS writing on it, but it's basically the TARDIS from River gives the Doctor a painting, doesn't she, with his TARDIS in the middle.
That's right.
In whatever story that was at the end of that series, and it's quite nice. I have to say, funny enough, these 2 Titans have just arrived in the post, so I have actually got them the actual product, and they are very nice. So that's the TARDIS. It kind of just looks like it's been painted in that sort of style, but we'll put a link in the description so you can have a look at them. And the other one that's come out is again 4.5 inch. It's the 11th Doctor as he appeared in Closing Time. Remember that story with what was that companion called? I don't know. But yeah, that Craig, wasn't it? Craig. He goes and works in a shop. Is it Craig?
Oh, Craig, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he goes and works in a shop with him. So basically it's the 11th Doctor in his shirt with his braces, and he's got a little badge on saying the Doctor here to help. And he's got a Sonic with him as well. So they're 2 quite nice Titans. I like the slightly bigger size as well. They look good on the shelf. If I had to pick, I'd probably go with the TARDIS one, mate. I don't know about you. I just think it's a little bit more unusual.
Yeah, if I had to pick
or
one.
Or you not? Because you do like Titans, but you're not into them like me. But do you like either of these?
Yeah, they're okay.
Either of them, or no?
They're okay. If I had to pick one, though, it'd be the TARDIS one.
The TARDIS one, yeah.
Yeah, it looks all right.
Yeah. So they're out now too. You can actually order them. They're not a bad price, I don't think, for what they are. So they're $12.99 each. You can get them from Forbidden Planet. They do keep going in and out of stock, just to warn you at the minute. For example, I think the TARDIS is currently out of stock, but then again, if you keep checking, it comes back in stock. So if you want to get them, just keep checking the Forbidden Planet. It's .com, the one that's got them, isn't it?
Yes, .com. Yeah,
it's .com that's got them on their site at the minute. So forbiddenplanet.com. And they are rather nice. I was when I opened them up the other day, I actually thought they were very nice. I'm very happy with them.
Cool. Good.
So yeah.
There we go.
And that's it for merch, I think.
That's it for merch, yes. Before we do our review, let's announce our winner.
Ooh.
For the Blu-ray Steelbook. Yeah. I still need to get a drum roll sound effect, don't I?
Oh, right. Hang on.
Go on in. Right. The winner is... Hold on. Let me fire up the... Yeah. I've still got this cool little randomizer thing on the Google sheet. Let's have a look. Right.
Yeah, we need an old 60s sound effect as well, don't we, for that randomizer?
Yeah. Right. The winner is Elliot Beasley.
Elliot Beasley. Well done.
Excellent. He entered via Twitter, it says here, at Elliot_Beasley. So well done, Elliot. We will be in touch very soon to nab your details, and we'll get it posted out to you.
Well done, Elliot. Excellent.
Yes, we'll chuck in a couple of other little bits as well for you.
It's a lovely steelbook, that.
It is. Yeah. Enjoy. Right, thank you all those other people that did enter the competition. No luck for you guys this time, but we will be doing another one in the near future. So keep your ears open for that. But thank you all so much for entering, everybody. And that was the steelbook giveaway. Now, My child. Yes. What are we going to review this week, buddy?
Oh, Gary, I can feel a cold's coming on. I don't know about you. The common cold. We are reviewing the First Doctor story, The Ark.
Yes, we've known for some time of the journey of the vessel you call the Ark, and we welcomed it. That is why we built places like this.
I see. Just to make us comfortable? I didn't think you needed places like this for yourselves.
No. Once, we had a shape and form something like you. Then there was a galaxy accident, a giant solar flare. Now, we no longer have a being that you can see or recognize.
But, can you see each other?
Not even that. Oh, we can sense one another, but that is all. That is why it would have been good for Ephusus to be inhabited again by life and the signs of life, provided that the beings who come to take our place are peaceful.
We must return to the launcher. We must warn one and the others so that we can prepare to deal with these unseen creatures.
So the Ark, the First Doctor story. It is very cool to be visiting the First Doctor again.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't watched Hartnell for a while. We haven't reviewed Hartnell for a while.
Yes.
And especially as he's very much been pushed forward in the new series due to the Christmas special and that, although it's not Hartnell, it's good to see a bit of First Doctor and just remind myself, what he's like and stuff like that. So, yeah, it is good.
The last time we did a Hartnell story was back in January.
No way.
Yeah, it was An Unearthly Child.
Good grief.
Yeah. Well, we've had Series 10, haven't we, going on? And
yeah.
And you also said that Hartnell was, in our Q&A, someone says, who's the most underrated Doctor? You said Hartnell first?
Yes, I do always think he's overlooked, yeah.
Yes. So the Ark then. This was out in 1966.
Good grief.
It was a 4-parter, 25 minutes each. It was written by Paul Erickson and Leslie Scott and directed by Michael Emerson. And it stars, obviously, The Doctor by William Hartnell, and the companions are Stephen and Dodo, Peter Purves and Jackie Lane. Story is thus, the TARDIS team land on what they think is Earth, in the middle of a big jungle. Turns out they're on a spaceship, which the Doctor actually calls the Ark. It wasn't known as the Ark until they got there. But it was just... so basically the planet Earth is slowly dying. So the last of them have shoved themselves onto... It's basically the story of the Ark. They're taking the human civilization and all the most of the animals and habitat and everything onto this giant spaceship, and they're going to another planet which is supposedly habitable for them. And the Doctor and the companions turn up with a cold onto the spaceship. They give the cold to the other people. They have no clue what it is because human civilization has progressed so much that the common cold no longer exists. A couple of people end up dying. The Doctor gets blamed, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he ends up, healing them, thinks it's all good. They bugger off in the TARDIS. When they return 700 years later, it turns out that the cold was initially stopped, but then mutated and killed loads of people, loads of humans. All the people that have been shrunk down microscopically, they're all safe in their trays and everything. But yeah, the Doctor is, not the favourite person amongst the humans. It turns out that the companions to the humans, this race of aliens called the Monoids, who were sort of slave figures, if you like, to the humans initially. There's been a sort of a shift in power. They've revolted, taken over the humans, and now they're going to this planet to set it up as themselves. And they're going to destroy the humans just before that happens. So it's down to the Doctor and so on to stop all that. And, make sure that the humans have a happy ever after on Refusis. With the Refusions, who they can't see, which is awkward.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving furniture and stuff like that in there.
Yes, a lot of classic filmmaking methods were employed in this one to give the illusion that there were invisible people, as you would expect from mid-60s.
Yeah.
So that's the arc, essentially. Mm-hmm. What did you think to this Hartnell story?
I rather enjoyed it. I was laughing an awful lot. I kept thinking, this is another one of those stories. I wish we were watching it in the same room, because there were bits of it I thought, I bet Gary's absolutely creasing up at this, especially when one of the monoids goes crazy and starts throwing flower vases around. I had to watch that scene twice. I loved it. But no, joking aside, I did find some of it unbelievably funny, unintentionally funny. But going back to the actual story and in a serious way, I did enjoy this. I found a bit of it, some of it dragged. There's no doubt about that, especially the second half of the story. So first 2 episodes I actually thought were really good. I actually was really getting into it, and the twist in the middle of them, because obviously back then viewers wouldn't have known this was a 4-parter, so they would have just assumed at the end of episode 2, when the TARDIS team leave, they probably thought that was the end of the story and we were going on to another story next week. But as it turns out, we get this little twist where the TARDIS just arrives back exactly where it was, but it's a long time. What is it? Thousands of years later or so? How long is it? It's
700 years between.
700 years, not 700 years later, and so and then when they arrive back, everything's changed. The monoids have revolted and put the humans into sort of slavery, so everything's reversed. And I thought, I loved that cliffhanger to the ending. So they sort of look up, and what was going to be this statue of someone or other, some muscly man, is now a muscly figure with a monoid head on it. And I thought it was a fantastic cliffhanger to the second episode. So I was really into this. First 2 episodes, really, really enjoying it. Second 2 episodes, I did enjoy them, but there was a lot of moments I was finding comedically funny, and they weren't supposed to be. And I felt that there were scenes where it really dragged as well, especially episode 3. So it definitely lost its momentum for me, the second half of it. But overall, mate, as a story, I don't think it's a classic. I think that it's a good one. I do think it's a fun watch, but I wouldn't. It doesn't quite hit the mark.
Right.
For me, it's not up there with some of Hartnell's other stories that I really, really like. Like the War Machines and stuff like that. So it's a good one. It's not bad. It's watchable, but it just doesn't quite hit the mark for me. And I will say this: I think everybody in it, including the director, have tried incredibly hard to make this work. Like, I think some of the shots in it, I think the director's, it's really adventurous in its production. I can see that the whole team are really trying to do something good here. It just they don't quite pull it off. I don't know if you felt that, but like there's lots of nice high shots in the episode 1 of the jungle and the Doctor looking up, and there's one bit where the camera zooms into the monitor and then it cuts to the real action. And, for the time, they are trying to make this story exciting. And I felt like the cast in it, although the supporting cast, which we will get onto, although they're not great in it, I do see that they're trying to make this a great story. So, it's overall I liked it, mate. It's by no means perfect, but I enjoyed it. Yeah. What about you?
Yes, I would mostly concur with all that. I feel that it was an enjoyable watch. Definitely, it was an enjoyable watch. It's just a very simple story, which is not a bad thing for Classic Who. Sometimes it does. It sort of moves along at a leisurely pace. There's no one thing that people will have noticed who have seen this one is that there's very little action in the whole 4 parts. There's a few scenes here and there, most notably the episode 4, where there's a bit of a sort of Western shootout.
Monoid really kicks off, doesn't he, at the
end? So there's that going on. There's a few little bits here and there, but overall it's a very sort of placid affair, really. And it's okay. I mean, like you, I felt that it did slow down a bit after episode 2. I mean, that's always the case, isn't it, with Classic Who?
It does seem to be, yeah.
Episode 3, if there's a 4 or a 6-parter, it's always going to be episodes 3 or 4 that are going to slow down every time, pretty much. And this is no exception. So episode 3 does dip a little bit, and most of episode 4, but it does pick up towards the end. So it does sort of amble along, and it's not too bad. But the one thing that I found about it is two things that stood out to me really at the top of my notes and that is Hartnell's not really in it that much. For a Hartnell story, he seems to be. There's a few key scenes where he takes the lead, but the rest of the time he's just sort of there, but he's not there. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So obviously in episode 1, he's sort of explaining to the humans there why they're there, and Stephen really sort of takes the lead with that stuff. He sort of gets quite angry, and but the Doctor sort of explains why they're there, and that stuff, and he works up the cure to the cold and that stuff, and then he's fairly quiet in the rest of it. It's almost like he has a sort of a series of small conversations throughout the story, as opposed to having like big Hartnell focused scenes. That's what I found.
Yeah.
And the second thing was, just want to agree with what you said, and that is for a story that's potentially hilarious unintentionally. The production and all of the cast really give it their all. They really want to make
I think they do.
the most of it and try and make it a believable story and an enjoyable story. So that's one thing that I did write as well. Just as sort of note number 2 for me was how much the cast and the production are really into it. And because I will say this, I think that the monoids is one of the funniest designs for a Doctor Who monster I've ever seen. It's like and when you hear what the actors had to do as well in the costume. So for just a reminder, or if people haven't seen this, a monoid is essentially somebody in a sleeping bag with a ping pong ball in their mouth and a bowl and a bowl cut wig, look like something from the Beatles, but or it.
It's definitely a good one to do as a cosplay next year, isn't it?
You'd never get anywhere because there's one scene where where you said earlier, the scene where one of them just loses it and starts launching around.
So funny.
Or the bit where they walk in the room, he actually trips down a step.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, he almost falls over. So the actor who's playing he falls down the step because he's got a sleeping bag on, and he can't move.
I didn't even notice. Yeah. Oh God, I'll have to go back and watch because I was probably so busy laughing because it's not to be cruel. It's just that it's this monoid throwing a real tantrum like a teenager. He just suddenly starts picking up vases and smashing them on the floor in a temper, and it was so funny. I'll have to go back and watch it because I didn't notice him trip over.
Yeah, it's really funny. So and when I read that the actors inside, they had to basically have a ping pong ball in their mouth with the eyeball painted on it.
Yeah.
And that was, they had to do that the whole time.
That's blooming dangerous.
Yeah. And the wigs are funny as well, that
they're yak hair, apparently.
John Lennon.
Yeah.
So the design is really funny to me. And the thing is, and it's not disrespectful to the people that were designing the show back in the day, it's because they had literally hardly any money, like we've said plenty of times. You've got to make do with what you've got, and it really is just a series of Blue Peter moments where you just go and get a load of stuff and some glue and some fabric, and you just make do. You just do the best you've got. So, it's unintentionally hilarious. It really is funny.
It is funny, and also don't forget the other thing that was really making me laugh was the voices, because one of them's voiced by Roy Skelton, who very famously also did the voice of Zippy. From anyone anywhere near our age. Zippy from Rainbow, which was a kids show when I was young. It's not on anymore, is it? So, but he still sounds like Zippy. So when he was going mad and ordering people around, all I could hear was Zippy. And it was cracking me up. He's like, "Thank you, Doctor. Now get back to that, you naughty man." And I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" It just added to the hilarity. One of the things I put in my notes, I thought, I bet me and Gary disagree on this. is that I actually do love the design of the monoids. And I thought, I bet Gary hates them, but I do love the design of them. Bad as they are, I mean, it is like, yeah, like you said, it's very Blue Peter, but I don't know. I love the look of them.
Sorry,
really
my cat's decided to try and chew through my headphone cable.
Right. She's gone mad.
Ridiculous animal.
Trying to kill you, Gary.
You quite like the monoid.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking all the way through, I'm loving the monoids, and I was thinking, I bet this is another Drashig. I bet Gary's thinking they're dreadful. But I don't know. I think because I was sort of falling in love with how bad they were, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They were so bad, they were good. I just loved them. Every time they're on screen, I just loved them. I was just like, oh, the hair, the eye, the voice, everything is hilarious. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I didn't think they were too bad. They're not sort of at Drashig level. They're not quite that bad. But I did think they were a little bit. They were so bad. They were funny. I mean, they're not too bad. But
did you think about the voice though? Did you think it was Zippy?
Well, that's what I was going to say. What you mentioned earlier.
Get out of my head.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you wished that we'd watch this together, and so do I, because when I knew that it was Roy Skelton that was voicing one of them, as soon as I heard his voice, that was me gone.
I just thought it would be like this. Oh no!
All that, and I thought, oh crikey!
I've just read on the thing he did the voice of Zippy and George. I didn't realise that. He was talking to himself for the whole show. That must have been bizarre. No, Zippy.
Yes.
George. Oh my goodness me, man of many talents. The other reason I wish you're watching it together is just for the title of episode 2 or 3. I forget now. 2, wasn't it? When it came up on the screen, I heard your voice in my head. Because episode 2, I think the plague.
The plague.
It's called the plague, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
it was just one comedy gold moment after another for me.
Yes, yeah, no, I agree, mate. I just cracking up.
But I did love it. I don't want to I guess listeners are probably thinking a bit. I don't want to undermine the story because I actually do think it's a very simple concept, and I really, really did like the story. I loved the switch at the middle because it is so long since I've watched this. I'd completely forgotten what any of it was about. So I loved the switch in the middle, and I do like the actual storyline, if you like. I think it's a great little adventure. There isn't much action in it, like you said, but I think it's a really good little concept. But yeah, so I don't want people to think I'm undermining it, but I was laughing a lot.
Yes, I agree. I just want to sort of a hand up vote towards that as well. It's not to undermine the story in any way, because it is a fairly decent story. It's just a little bit I think overall for me it's a bit slow. It is a bit slow. Yeah, it does move along at quite a leisurely pace. There's not much going on, and there's an awful lot of talking and not a lot of doing. That's probably the way I can sum it up.
I thought something had gone wrong at one point as well, because in episode 1, you know when Dodo sneezes and Stephen sort of tries to cuddle her to muffle it because they don't want to be caught. They just stand there for what feels like forever. And I was thinking, have they forgotten their line? Are they waiting for a cue? Did you notice that?
Yes.
It goes on. I was thinking, are they waiting for a cut? And then after what feels like forever, they just move and carry on with the scene. They're like, it's as if it's the longest sneeze in history.
Yeah, I took that as they were making sure that there was nobody around that heard the sneeze.
Nothing happens. It's just like it almost as if the DVD is got stuck, because literally they just stand there still for what feels like forever. There was a couple of moments like that actually, where it just seemed to me that it was almost as if we were waiting for something like a cue. There was just these really long pauses. There was a couple of bits since episode 3 or thing like that. But as I said, on the other hand, I thought the direction was good and also very adventurous. Like, we've got a live elephant in the studio in the very first scene. Now, you know, we've seen a live elephant in Doctor Who very recently in Knock Knock, but it was a CGI one. Not back then, my friend. Back then, they have wheeled in a live elephant into the studio and pushed him into a set. And what's that thing at the beginning as well? A buzzard or something flies across the sand dunes. And there's all sorts of real animals. That these are not stock footage. They've actually brought them in for this story, and I immediately thought are going for it here.
Yeah.
Whether they succeed or fail, they are really going for it and trying to do something. But
there was one.
There's all sorts in there.
Yeah, there was one bit where I thought the lizard. What is it? She accurately labels it. Is it a monitor or?
I can't remember
iguana
now.
Or something.
Something like that.
There's one bit where there's a toucan in there, and I thought he was going to eat the lizard because it sort of goes flapping over it and almost picks it up, and I thought, oh, the lizard's a goner.
Yeah, but it's just amazing they actually went to that amount of effort back then, if you know what I mean. And I did love, just going back to her sneeze, I did really like the idea because in let's take Doubts and the Ballot Man, for example, the companion always sneezes when they're trying to hide, and it was a bit of it's very much an 80s cop out, wasn't it, back then? They always used to happen in like the A-Team or something. If they're hiding, someone would suddenly sneeze and they'd all get caught. So I thought it was just that, but I quite like the fact it then went on to actually be part of the storyline of her spreading that cold, because I just thought it was just a silly, thing that we always see in shows like that. So I'm quite glad it actually had the consequence that she did really have a cold, and it wasn't just her, trying not to get caught that we've seen 1,000 times before, sort of thing.
No, it was good. Yeah. I just want to pick up quickly on what you were saying about them waiting in the bushes after the sneeze for ages.
Yeah.
There was a scene before that when the TARDIS first lands and Stephen and Dodo are, because she runs out, doesn't she? She's all excited.
That's right. What is she wearing, by the way?
and Stephen chases her, and you're like, "What the hell do you think you're doing? There could be anything out here. No atmosphere." He basically gives a good selling off.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where shortly after the two of them are standing in a bush admiring some animal of some sort, but the camera's sort of pulled back quite far, and I don't think that they considered the fact that Hartnell's in the TARDIS waiting for his cue.
Oh, I saw that. I noticed that. Yeah.
So the TARDIS is on him for a good sort of 10 seconds or so while
he's just waiting there.
Yeah. And it's meant that the focus of the shot is meant to be on Dodo while she's looking at this animal, whatever. But you can see Hartnell at the top of the frame, just standing in the doorway of the TARDIS, just having a daydream,
isn't he? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he sort of springs to life and he marches out, and that's it. So, do you know what though? It's little things like that I love about
me too.
Classic Who, especially early Classic Who, because it just goes to show that they didn't have the time and the money to go back and reshoot all the time. So once the cameras are rolling, that's it. You've got to get it. And even if there is these little mistakes, too bad, because it wasn't too bad in this one actually, but I noticed a couple of times Hartnell and one of the supporting characters, there was a couple of little line fluffs. But it's exactly the same scenario. You can't go back and do it again because it's just there's not enough time to do that stuff. But secondly, it just shows the professionalism of the actors really, because I get the feeling that how many times over the years when you've watched like behind the scenes or anything like that, where you've seen actors go through like 25 takes because they've fluffed their line or they can't remember
not
it or
happier
something.
with it, or they want to do it. Yeah,
and they've had a bit of a diva moment. Whereas in this, it's like they fluff the word and they just correct themselves and crack on. There's none of this. Stop. I've got it wrong. Let's go again. And all they just get on with it.
And they work together as well, because like if you think about, I'm thinking more William Russell actually in this story. But if Bill Hartnell fluffed his line when he was with William Russell and Jackie Hill, they were very much a team, and they were great at sort of, because they knew the script. They hadn't just read their lines. They were very good at sort of knowing what he should have said and improvising. And they, like you said, very often just had to go with it. We're slightly getting towards Hartnell's regeneration, and we're sort of on the way to them replacing him at this point. And so I think they talk about the making of, saying he was getting bad at remembering his lines and all this sort of thing. But I don't know about you, mate, but he may have fluffed a few lines in this. But I think if anything, he was getting better at covering up the fluffs, because there's a couple of ones where he sort of, instead of getting all, like in, say, like the pilot and that and stuff, if he gets the line wrong, it gets very juddery and sort of almost just completely messes the line. In this, I noticed if he fluffed it, he kind of stops and just, as if he goes, calm, and then delivers the line. And I just thought, if anything, he was sort of criticised for fluffing lines towards the end, but I think if anything, he's got better. Just because there's a couple of bits where he sort of says the line wrong, and he just sort of stops and very calmly just says it again, as if like we would in a normal conversation. And I thought, people give him a lot of stick, but he's doing the job here. Do you know what I mean? Considering what he was battling with back then, as we know, he had well, there was a lot of reasons for why he forgot his lines. Don't get into that, but do you know what I mean? I think he gets a lot of stick, but for me, even when he fluffed it in this, he saved it without it being too embarrassing or too obvious. Let's put it that way.
No, I agree. And like I said, there was a couple of line fluffs in it and a couple of words, but there was only very, very minute couple of occasions from Hartnell and then one other time from the supporting cast. But no, he was great in this. He was really the lines that he delivered. They're all great, all on point, and so yeah, he does get a little bit of criticism for fluffing lines towards the end of his era, but this one, no issue really.
No, I didn't think so.
No, all good. Okay, a couple of story bits before we move on to some characters. Did you like you mentioned the cliffhanger on episode 2?
Yeah.
What a great cliffhanger. So the cliffhanger really for episode 2. So the humans that are making sure that the ship gets to its destination are called the Guardians. That's what they've been called. The rest of the human population has been shrunk down microscopically, and they're just kept in these trays. Because it's quite cool, because at the beginning we see somebody who's broken the law, and their sentence is to be shrunk down and shoved in the trays, with the other humans. And so the Guardians are sort of custodian of the human race, essentially. They're making sure that it's getting to its destination okay. And but I think you mentioned it earlier, the switch halfway through, it's such a fantastic way to sort of change up the story midway through, because although we're saying that the story dips into episode 3 and stuff, it does, but the initial reaction you get, and the clever thing about that cliffhanger is that it's like a time displacement cliffhanger, because we're seeing it at that present time where the humans are still in control and stuff. So episode 2 is before, all of the monoids being in control and all that stuff. We're still seeing it where they're sort of a slave race, if you like, to the humans. And then when the camera pans up, so the humans walk away and the camera pans up the statue. And that's, like you said, when we see the monoid's head on top of it. So it's like a real sort of time displacement cliffhanger, because the completion of the statue is not until hundreds of years later. So, because at that time in episodes 1 and 2, they're only starting to build the statue. You only see its feet at that time, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's going to take them so many years to finish it. It's almost like, what shall we do on the voyage? Let's build a statue. So at the end of episode 2, where you should only really be seeing its feet still, you see the completed statue with the monoid head. And when I first watched it, when I first saw it, I was like, no way. Like, how can this be? It's such a great cliffhanger. And do you know what? Sometimes I miss that in Doctor Who, because I know that in modern Who, the majority of them are all 45-minute one episodes, and there's a lot more singular episodes than there are 2 or 4 parters, whatever. But I really miss those really intriguing, cool cliffhangers that we had in Classic Who.
It's a good one, isn't it? I'm surprised I'd forgotten it as well, because it genuinely came, I thought, like you, I was genuinely like, oh, that's brilliant. That's awesome. What a great idea. What a great way of showing very simply that something has changed. And the other thing I liked was in sort of the first 2 episodes, the monoids don't speak. So the humans interact with them with this weird sign language. And then in the second half of the story, they've learned to evolve, and they've sort of learned from they've taken like human technology, they say, or something, don't they? And they've learned to build these voice boxes, and they're actually, in the second 2 episodes, they've actually managed to talk and they communicate, and they've really sort of advanced. And I thought that's really cool. So we get to see what they were like before in this very basic sort of form of, and the humans just, like you said, using them as slaves and getting them to drive round and do all the dirty work. And they, somewhere along the line, they have been thinking, I ain't having this. And there's obviously been a revolt, and I just thought it was really good because it was so much more interesting than if they'd have talked from the get-go. Do you know what I mean? Just the fact that they're suddenly evolved, themselves as well. I just thought made it so much more interesting to watch.
Yes, yeah, and it's really, they've kind of taken advantage, haven't they, of the mutated cold, if you like.
Yes.
So because the human race has kind of gone back into this like they're high fever and they're weak, and a lot of humans die as a result of it. The monoids are like, hold up, we have an opportunity here, lads and lasses. So they just seize power, and then because like hundreds of years have gone past between the Doctor going and coming back, they've sort of advanced technology a bit, and and research stuff. So these collars that enable them to speak. So I quite like the first 2 episodes where they had this very, very basic and strange sign language where it was just sort of waving their arms and pointing. It's like, go over there and there's something to do. And the monoids are like, okay. So off they go and they sort of do it. So it's not sign language, like proper sign language, that deaf people, would recognize and stuff. But it's very strange, but it's kind of cool in a way. It
makes it different, doesn't it? It gives a good difference between the two timelines, I think.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, but having said that, the amount of emotion and all that sort of stuff, there's no way they could have conveyed that in that basic language. So all of the plotting and planning that the monoids, especially monoid 1, there's no way that we would get what he was trying to do with just that waving of arms and stuff. So it had to happen, I suppose.
Monoid 1, I love it because when they're all, there's a bit of a revolt in between the monoids in the last part, isn't it? Where one of us like, we shouldn't be doing this, and I'm going to stop you, and they don't think you're good enough to be leader, and they start turning on themselves, and you've got monoid 3 kicking off and all that sort of stuff. And let's not forget, I've just got to get this in there before I forget. This story does feature my all-time favorite line of take them away to the security kitchen. I remember the first time, and everybody loves that. And I remember the first time I heard it saying, a security kitchen. That is really bizarre. And it's so funny because even Steven says later on, doesn't he, how can I get out of this kitchen? And it's just really weird that they're keeping all the humans in this kitchen. Oh, it's so funny. But what is that about? Why has they got a security kitchen?
Well, it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because the monoids, they're using the humans as slaves, to their every whim. And one of the humans that has been captured as well, I think, what's his name? Who was the human in episode 3 and 4 that helped Stephen mostly?
Oh, the one that's the dark-haired guy.
Zentos?
Could be. I didn't catch any of their names apart from one who we'll come on to when we talk about cast. But
so he actually says, we're kept as slaves, mainly here sorting out their food. So they're quite hungry.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Monsters.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to double up on the location as well. If you're gonna, have slaves, you may as well keep them in the kitchen to keep the food coming.
It's brilliant though. I love it.
Great.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
The security kitchen.
Security kitchen. I'm going to get me a security kitchen. I love the statue as well, mate. Don't you? I think that's a really cool idea of having the human body, but then they've stuck their head on it. Yeah. Really, really cool.
Symbolic of their power. Sort of their power over the Guardians and stuff. So yeah. So I think just to round off story stuff, it's you've probably got the gist of what it's about now. The the humans were in charge. They're on their way to the planet. Halfway through, after the Doctor's left, there's been a revolt, whatever you want to call it, a coup, and the monoids have now seized power. The humans are enslaved, and the monoids now want to take the planet Refusis as their own. And I think the initial plan was to take the humans with them and continue them as slaves. But I think because of what happens and the Monoid 1 gets a bit sort of panicky about what the humans are up to, he then decides to just blow up the spaceship once they've landed on the planet and destroy them.
We do get that other element of this invisible race, though, which is a bit odd, and I don't really know how I feel about that, because it feels a bit thrown in there to me. I don't know if you agree, but also the fact that the Doctor says, "Can you see each other?" and the guy's like, "No," and I was thinking, you'd just be bumping into. How many of you are there? Do you know what I mean? Just be banging into each other and furniture moving around, and it also, I'm not quite sure about that. I never quite got the concept of it, but I mean, I think it's there really just to bring the conclusion, like, because they eventually lift up the statue, which turns out to be the bomb that the monoids have left to blow it. So they kind of work in terms of that, but yeah, they felt a little bit thrown into the story to me. I didn't think that's the least successful part of the story for me, I think.
Yeah,
this invisible race. Yeah, that didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, what they called the refuse.
I'm not sure what they're called.
The Refusions. That's it.
Right.
The Refusions, yeah.
Yeah.
The actual planet's Refusis 2. So maybe on Refusis 1, they're not invisible.
Yeah, I think he says there is a reason for why they're invisible. I forget what it is. That's a nice scene when Hartnell's sat in a chair having a chat with an invisible Refusis, or whatever they're called. That's quite funny. Only Hartnell could pull that off, I think. He just casually sat there chatting away to an empty chair, but quite convincingly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually, touching on these Refusions. It is a bit gimmicky. To have in the story. However, I thought that the effects for the time were done really well. So obviously you get like the fishing line attached to the bush. So, you give it a yank and, that's supposed to simulate somebody walking through the bush. But I thought like the indent in the chair, as if somebody's sat on it, that was really cool. And there was another effect as well that I'm forgetting, but I thought it was done really well for its time. I mean,
that comes back to what I was saying about them making an effort, because like we get to see some of the shuttles dropping down on the planet in the background. Now I know it doesn't look particularly good, but I can totally see what they're trying to do. And I just think, again, you just sort of think, okay, they're making the effort. They didn't even have to bother doing that, really. They could have literally just panned round and showed the full model, the full spaceship that they built on set. But they sort of do this scene, don't they, where the ships sort of land. They're quite small. They land on the actual planet and it pans around. So I thought, again, they're trying to make something good here, even though it hasn't quite worked.
Well, that's what I mentioned earlier. They've employed some real sort of some filmmaking techniques that they had to do, because they had no other way of, and no other budget of doing it, really. So they've used that a couple of times. I think it's like this forced perspective sort of thing, where they've used models, but they've tried to make it look like they're full-size things. So they did it with the statue. So anytime you see the statue, it's probably only like 30 centimeters tall, this statue that was made in a model shop. But the way that the angles and, the background, the way they've tried to do it, so it looks like it's huge. And the same with these little shuttles that come down from the Ark onto the planet. You see it landing, and it's meant to be this big craft, but you can tell it's a model. They haven't quite advanced the techniques at that point, for it to be 100% convincing. But like you say, Matt, they gave it a shot.
And it does the job. Yeah,
it does the job. Yeah. So story-wise, that was the thing, and it does move along. The editing's not too bad; it's fairly standard.
It's all right
for its time. There was a couple of moments where they could have cut the scene off a bit earlier. Some of them did go on for, a little bit. I think that's just television for its time, though. It was very much more a relaxed thing, and scenes where you just had people that had finished their lines, but then they'd go and sit down, or they'd go for a walk, and then that would happen, and then it would fade out and fade in again to the next one. So, very much for its time, obviously, all that stuff, and I like the music as well. There was a couple of little moments where the Doctor first, when they first go inside the Ark Guardian sort of control room sort of thing. And there's a bit later on when they're on Refusis where the Doctor first steps into one of the buildings that the Refusians had built for the, for the imminent human arrival. So they built these big buildings and palaces, didn't they? Because they knew the humans were coming, which is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the Doctor first steps in, it's like this really cool piece of music, and I recognise it instantly because it always pops up on when I listen to the soundtrack. Because I normally put it on random and it just picks whatever. But I always really like that piece of music, and it only appears 2 or 3 times throughout the 4 parts. But yeah,
it's Tristram Carey, isn't it? Done a lot of that, I think. So I think it's stock music, but they use a lot of his music in it. Yeah, it's nice. I think I know the piece you mean.
Yeah. It's like a sort of foreboding, sinister.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah. I like that as well.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And and sort of production wise, I think this is one of the first. I think this is the first story in this series, which is series 3, where all of the parts are there. It's because I think up to that point, the stories in series 3, there was at least one part missing.
That's right. Yeah.
So production-wise, they've only got the 16mm film stock left, but it's not too bad. I was expecting it to be quite fuzzy and really sort of off at some points, but it's not too bad actually, this one.
No, it's pretty decent actually, because there's a lot of they use a lot of the set designs use a lot of, do they call them flats, or I'm not sure. There's a lot of, they're like big paintings that are supposed to make the set look like they go back quite far.
Oh yeah, the matte paintings,
matte paintings, and they don't look too bad in this. We've certainly seen a lot worse. I mean, they're a bit obvious, but I think they look quite nicely done. For the time, I thought, but they show up, when something's quite clear like this, they show up even more.
They do.
Yes.
Let's talk about some characters.
Yes.
Supporting cast wise, right, you mentioned there was one character in there. I think I know.
Well, there's only one that I had to go and find his name because I didn't get anybody's name in this. Actually, there's two that I want to highlight actually, for totally different reasons. So don't know any of their names, but I thought the supporting cast were not great, but I did think they were trying. I don't think they were awful. I think we've seen a hell of a lot worse. So I think they did a decent job, but I wouldn't say the supporting cast were particularly good in terms of the acting, if I'm honest. Yeah. But I think they're all right. But the one I wanted to mention, well, the two I want to mention is, first off, really surprised to see Michael Sheard popping up because I'd forgotten he was in it. And his acting's fine. I think he's a great actor anyway, Michael Sheard, and he pops up in quite a few Doctor Who episodes. So he's in Remembrance as the headmaster, and is it the Invisible Enemy he's in? Tom Baker, and he's in Pyramids of Mars, and so he pops up a few times, Doctor Who, and I didn't remember him being in this. So he plays the Doctor in it, or what is he? He's like when they get the cold, he's like, I don't know if he's a doctor actually, but he's sort of looking into it, and he's wearing this funny face, and he looks very young actually. So he's only in it for a very short time.
Ross he played. Yeah.
Ross, yeah. So just lovely to see Michael Sheard popping up in this because I'd forgotten about it. But going back to the slightly not so good acting, I have to highlight the Commander, who does really throw himself into the role in episodes 1 and 2 until he gets the cold and he's flawed. But for me, I was thinking his performance was very over the top and quite camp, and it just took me out of the story a little bit. I think he was trying really hard to give a good performance, and it's no detriment to him, but I didn't think he was particularly convincing. He's a bit of a wet fish for a commander.
I thought that was the guy you were going to pick out.
Yeah, if I was going to highlight one as being a little bit too over the top, it would be him.
Yes, Eric Elliott.
Yeah.
But he was really old, like at the time of this film. At the time of
he
film.
Seems to be having a ball. He seems to be absolutely loving it, but perhaps a little bit too much. I think he should have reined in his performance a bit. But he's really, he's having the time of his life in this one, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like, hello, and he's like leaning across the monitors. How are you all? And all this. He's very he's very jovial. But for me, he was a bit OTT.
Yeah, very stern, but very kind of, having the time of his life, really, because he's probably thinking, I'm sort of nearing retirement age now, because he was born in 1902.
Wow.
Yeah, and he lived until the early 80s, I believe. But like almost every actor who's ever appeared in classic Who, he went on to Z Cars.
Oh, right.
At some point, as everyone does. But he's been in quite a few things, and but I thought the same. He has not quite. No, I've forgotten the actor's name. Who's the actor's name we always reference?
David Collins.
David Collins, that's it. I'm going to have to write that.
Definitely bordering on that, though. Yeah.
Bordering, but not quite as bad. He hasn't taken the crown off David yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to write that down on a Post-it note.
When we say bad, we just mean over the top. Because I do like David Collins.
Chewing the words.
He's very theatrical, shall we say. Very theatrical.
Yeah. David Collins. What was that? That was the...
Robots of Death, isn't it? Toos. Oh, no.
Yeah.
it's a robot. Anyway.
Oh, man. Yeah. So, I mean, although we're sort of criticising, they were, like we said at the beginning, they were giving it, a solid effort. They really wanted to. And it
still makes it fun to watch, doesn't it? Because even though I'm sat there thinking, oh, my goodness me, chewing the cinder, still was really fun to watch him going for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was one guy that I quite liked as well. It was a little bit OTT, but I quite liked his performance. And that was in episode 2. He was in the first couple of episodes, but he really comes into his own. He's the one that sort of overtakes control while the commander is sick.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and he's the guy that really pushed for the Doctor to be, and the companions to be, punished, and he's got no trust in them whatsoever. So I thought he was really good. And it really annoying me that I can't remember his character name so that I could match up with the actor. But whoever that character was, I thought he was very cool.
Yeah, he was one of the better ones, definitely, because it's good that he's so adamant that it's, that he's in the right, and then the commander sort of says, well, we'll give them this chance, and if they don't manage to, heal the cold, then you can have your way or something. And he's very disgruntled, isn't he? So I thought he was okay. He was decent, whatever his name was. Yeah,
whatever his name was. Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah. Any other support characters before we get on to the TARDIS team people?
No, I'll be honest with you. None of the others really stood out to me particularly, apart from those two. Yeah, or three. Yeah.
Okay, so Dodo then, Jackie Lane.
Very weak in this, I thought, because I don't know her very well as a companion. She's one I'll be honest with you, I tend to forget Dodo. I just don't know. I mean, as we watch more of her stories, I want to see more of her, actually, more of her character, because Jackie Lane, she's just one of those characters. If you say to me First Doctor, I don't immediately think of Dodo. I think, of Susan or Barbara or Polly even, but I never really think of Dodo. So I was when she first gets at the TARDIS, I was quite sort of like, oh, I haven't seen this companion for a while. What's she like? And she doesn't really do anything. And what she does do, I found her a little bit irritating. So it's probably not her best story, because it's her first proper trip in the TARDIS. I think she only joins them in the previous story, doesn't she? Which probably explains her costume. Yeah. So it's her first sort of proper trip in the TARDIS, I think. So, I have to give her a bit of slack. And I think from what I was seeing in the little extras on the DVD, I think she settles down over the next few stories or whatever she's in. So, I'd like to see more of her as a companion, but she didn't do anything for me at all in this story. Not all her fault, because, to be fair, she didn't have a lot written for her to do. But, I just found her a little bit irritating in it. In terms of her acting, was a bit sort of, bit theatre. And, I wasn't over fond of her.
Yeah, I don't mind Dodo. She's okay, but my main issue with her is that they cast somebody that's too similar to Susan. That's my only sort of hang up with Dodo. I think she's a decent actress and stuff, and she's not too bad, but she's just too similar to Susan, I feel. But she's okay. I mean, interestingly, Jackie Lane, she went on to be an agent.
Yeah, so I hear.
Yeah, she went on to manage Tom Baker.
Did she?
Yeah, Jeanette Fielding. And Nick Courtney as well.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, so she went on to manage those peeps and probably landed them their roles, I would have thought.
Yeah.
But I think, she was okay in it. She wasn't.
Yeah, she's all right, but didn't do much for me.
What about Peter Purvis?
I thought he was really going for it. He's, again, a little over the top at times, but I quite liked him in it, actually. He certainly livened up some of the scenes that definitely needed livening up, if you know what I mean. I think he was he's pushed himself forward a bit. I think he's obviously been told that, you know, he's just going to be the sort of he's stepping into Ian's shoes, isn't he, as being the strong companion, you know. So yeah, he's grabbed the part with both hands. I thought he was very decent in it. And I didn't have any qualms with him. I thought he was pretty good. The acting was fine. As I said, sometimes he may have gone a little bit shouty over the top when he's in the prison, but no, I thought he was good, you know, with what he was given to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think he definitely played the, and again, he's very similar to Ian's character in some respects, because
he is a bit, yeah.
He's like the younger, stronger, you know, ready for a bit of a scrap if need be.
That's it. I'm taking no nonsense.
Yeah, kind of character. Whereas a Doctor would never get in not this Doctor anyway. Hartnell would never get into a fist fight with anybody. Whereas I think Stephen would probably throw down if he had to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the first Doctor might slam a rock over the back of your head, yeah, but he wouldn't. Yeah,
but that's what
mood he's in. Yeah,
well, yeah, he wouldn't. It's not like
normally he's quite stands back and
Whereas somebody like Pertwee, you know, he gets into his
like Flash.
Yeah, he has his fair share of scuffles and throws or he slaps around. Where you can't see Hartnell doing that really.
No.
So Stephen's there. I'm not saying that he's there like as the muscle. But what I mean is he's quite strong and, you know, he's got your back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he's pretty good in this. There's a couple of scenes where he really goes for it and he gets quite infuriated with what's going on and, you know, he's quite passionate. So, yeah.
He reins Dodo in quite a lot, doesn't he? He's quite cross with her for most of the story. It's almost as if he finds her quite irritating.
Yeah. You know? And Hartnell then.
Hartnell.
I know we touched on him briefly, but... I would say that I wouldn't say it's his best story from his era, and nor is it his best performance. But there's certainly not anything bad about it, really. I just wish that he was in it a bit more. That's the only thing for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because when he lights up the screen as soon as he enters the room, doesn't he? I think it's episode 2 or 3. There's a bit where he actually it might even be 4. There's a bit where there's a crowd. And he almost makes a bit of a grand entrance. He like pushes them to the side, doesn't he? Is it the end of it? He sort of just comes through the crowd and says, "Yes, that's right," and suddenly takes control of the whole scene.
That's right.
And I was thinking, that's that's really nice. But yeah, I'd like to see more of him in it. I thought he seemed to me very confident and relaxed, which is why it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's surprising because as we're getting towards this end of Hartnell's era. So at this point, you know, I'd expect Hartnell to be sort of a little bit worn out, you know, a little bit drained because of what we've heard towards the end of his era and stuff. But for me, he's still firing on all cylinders. He seems very relaxed and comfortable in the part. And we know that he was, you know, quite upset when the early cast members left. So he's dealing with a new cast and he's got this new companion, Dodo. And he just seems to be taking it all in his stride. And I think, like you said, Dodo a bit similar to Susan, especially from Hartnell's point of view, because he's like telling her off.
A lot.
Like he used to do Susan, like he tells her off the way she speaks at the beginning, doesn't he? Yeah. He's like, "What's all this talk, child?" You know, and all this, and it's so he slipped a bit back into that grandfathery figure, and I really liked that. I thought, you know, it suits him. So I have no qualms with Hartnell. I just agree with you. I'd like to see a bit more of him, but I think when he's on screen, I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, he does. I completely agree with you. There are most of the moments he completely lights up the scene, and he's definitely got a presence, you know, gives off a certain aura that the other actors just don't have at that time when he's on screen at the same time. So I think he has that nice mix again that I love with Hartnell, where he's quite short and stroppy at times, but also he's quite funny at other times and quite relaxed and just goes with it.
And the thing I love about Hartnell is as well, when they're stuck on the planet and the spaceship's blown up at the end and Dodo's kicking off, what are we going to do? What if this doesn't happen? And he just sort of says, well, we'll just have to stay here then, won't we? He's so matter of fact about it. Yeah. Well, we'll just have to stay here. What's the problem? Yeah. That's what I love about Hartnell. It's just like whatever situation he's in, you know, what will be, isn't it, with him? So that's what I love about him. Yeah.
And he does tell Dodo off quite a lot. It's quite funny.
Oh, he does.
About her English and stuff. What is this child?
What are you wearing, child? He even says at one point, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he does a lot of that little chuckling thing as well. Most of his lines are followed up with the little...
He still seems to be enjoying the part. That's what I found. Like, I still can see this little, twinkle in his eye. Yes. Don't you think? He still seems to be loving being the Doctor.
Yes.
You don't feel like he's going through the motions at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the arc. Anything else you want to mention before scores?
No, we've covered it, mate. I haven't got any other notes.
Right. Who's going to go first?
You go first.
I'll go first. Okay. I will give this a 6.5.
Oh. Well, okay. I think that's a fair score. I was somewhere around that mark. I've gone slightly higher. I've gone for a 7.
A 7? Okay.
Yeah, I was between 6.5 and a 7. 6 is too low. I think it's definitely better than that. 7, I must admit, seems slightly too high, so I nearly went for 6.5. But I did enjoy it, mate. I really did. So I'm going to go 7. Yeah, I enjoyed watching it.
Okay. I'll read you. Right, what did our lovely listeners think? We had a couple of audio clips in, so let's do one of those first. I think this is Maria's first audio clip because she's sent in...
Maria, gotta see her.
So I think she sent in some audio, some review clips before, but... Crikey. I thought you were going to do the West End version then.
Oh, no. I'll save that one for next week.
And I'm from... listening to the opening seconds of Maria's clip, it's absolutely 100% confirmed that we've been saying her name incorrectly.
Right.
Which will be of no surprise for anyone. But anyway, this is Maria's thoughts on the arc.
Hi Adam and Gary, it's Maria Colotichu here with my review of The Ark. So what I really like is that by this stage of season 3, there definitely seems a confidence with the production, and Bill Hartnell is very comfortable in his role as the Doctor. I don't know that I actually like Dodo that much here. She seems very impulsive and childlike, and there doesn't seem to be much to her yet. But it's great to be able to see a full story with Stephen, who's a hugely reliable member of the TARDIS team and fits in really well. The arc is really nicely realised, especially the jungle at the beginning, even with the motorised transport, and there are some really nice model shots. I really enjoyed the idea of revisiting the same place again. And the nice surprise of the head of the statue being not what was expected. It's a great way of expressing the passing of time too. And I did like the twist very much that the Monoids are in charge later when the team return. They're much more interesting to watch, although I kept getting distracted by the Monoid eye each time one of them was talking. The human guardians are unusually naive, and the way they treat the Monoids suggests they're a bit narrow-minded, which doesn't really bode well for their future. I didn't think Refusis necessarily suggested paradise before they arrived, and I did wonder how it would all work out for them long-term. I do like the idea that Dodo's cold causes a plague for the human guardians, and, the Doctor is rightly worried about their impact as travellers. It's quite refreshing to see this, as most of the time the Doctor gallivants here and there without really tackling this kind of issue. So overall, I think this story is a 7 out of 10 for me. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you, Maria. Excellent review.
Yes, and it is clear that I've been saying your surname incorrectly, which I'm very sorry about.
Very good point about Refusis not looking like paradise. Imagine them travelling all that way and then just getting there and it's just a swamp with a few trees.
That would suck, wouldn't
it? Yes, it would.
Indeed. Right, over on Twitter, classic Doctor Who, actually.
Oh.
Who I followed for a very long time. They've said, adore this story. Finally watched it a few years ago. It genuinely surprised me halfway through. He says, they say, yes, spoilers can be avoided for decades. Peggy M37 says, a hidden gem of Doctor Who, and one of my all-time favourite stories. The surprise halfway through was chilling.
Ooh.
Which it is. And Greg Hobbs, his Twitter name is Scraggly Bear, says, very, very solid story. Great story structure, classic pace, great sci-fi idea. Which I would agree with.
Yes, me too.
Over on Facebook, we only had a few on here. So Aaron Ball says, I find it quite underrated. The idea of changing time is a great lesson, and the effects it can have. I find Dodo annoying, to be honest, but Stephen is brilliant per usual. Only if more episodes with Stephen were around. And Hartnell, per usual, he is just a magical doctor. And last but not least, the monoids are a cool design. I like the idea. Overall, underrated story, which I will give a 7 out of 10.
Number 7.
Let's do our second audio clip. This is from Dan Ander from the TARDIS. This is Sammy Satine.
Sammy!
G'day, Gary and Adam. Sammy Satine here. Why is it every time I see the First Doctor I want to grip my lapels and say, my dear child, when we get back to the TARDIS, I'm going to teach you how to speak English properly. I like Dodo. She seems like a character to me. I also like how the monoids go from silent to speaking. This is really 2 stories in one. It's great! The Rafutians prove that even though they are invisible, they can make peace. 7 out of 10. See ya.
Thank you, Sammy.
Cheers, Sammy. Great review.
Another 7. Seems to be a popular score, that one. Right, back on Facebook, Leslie Shergold says, take them away to the security kitchen. Best line ever. There's a lot to like in the arc. A timey-wimey cliffhanger to episode 2. Good production values. Some really good sets and music, but I don't feel it's particularly dramatic and only perks up whenever the TARDIS crew are on screen. An ambitious tale let down by the unfortunate, laughable monoids, but still a solid 6 out of 10.
Fair enough.
Miles Mackenzie says, got this story from HMV a few years back, and I was feeling up for a bit of Hartnell. I don't know how to feel about it, though. I like some elements and others not so much. It is a watchable, though, and the cast did a really good job. 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Okay.
Lastly, Lewis Palmer says, a good story of 2 halves. I found the first 2 episodes to be really cool, self-contained story, and the idea of returning to the same place at a different time is inspired. They do some really cool stuff with the different time zones. However, a good concept does not make a good story. And I found the last 2 episodes dragged heavily. I'm tempted to rate it higher just for the sheer creativity and interesting sci-fi concepts, but it's a 5 out of 10 from me.
Thank you, Mr. Apple. Yeah, good creativity. I agree with that.
So that does it for the official Facebook page. Do you have anything over on the Geeks Handbag?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, funny enough, the first one is from our competition winner, Elliot Beasley. He really likes the design of the monoids and felt that it had some good model work going on in there. He says the time-lapse cliffhanger to episode 2 is impressive. Viewers in 1966 with no idea of how long each episode might last would have been completely thrown. It's also possibly the funniest line ever with take them to the security kitchen as well, which we all love. However, there's not much characterization within the story, so both the humans and the monoids tend to be a bit one-dimensional, he says. But overall, it's by no means perfect, but a nice and fun watch. He gives it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, agree with a lot of that. Over on Facebook, I had a couple of reviews, the same as you. So, Patrick Sherwood says he likes the arc for what it is. It's not the best First Doctor story, but the cast are good, and he's going to give it an 8.5 out of 10, so quite high. Cool. Jamie Ackley says, I'd say in a nutshell, it's blinking daft and kind of charming. Dodo's cold acting is unforgivable, however. And Mick Willis Best just simply says he loves this story. So, yeah, I think we get the impression that it's got a charm to it. It's quite loved, but it's not perfect. But if someone said to you, Gary, would you recommend watching it? Would you say yes? Because I think I would. I'd say there's not a lot of action in it, but it's a decent watch.
I would actually, yeah. I would say, yeah, if you're after a Hartnell story that you haven't seen. So if anyone's seen like the more popular ones out there, and you were looking for another one to watch, I would definitely recommend it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's going to do for Scores. Thank you so much, guys, for sending in your thoughts and reviews and your audio clips. Very much appreciated. And I think, actually, no, before we end, what we're going to do next week?
Oh, next week, we're going back to the 10th Doctor. We're going to be watching The Runaway Bride.
Christmas is early.
Runaway. Christmas has come early, yeah.
Yes.
Runaway Bride.
So I believe, I haven't seen it in a long time, I believe that's Catherine Tate's first adventure with the Doctor, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as you put it on the schedule, first thing that pops into my mind is the taxi TARDIS chase. So that's about all I can remember from this one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that again.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And I think we're going to do there for 151. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us and listening to 151. It's been an interesting show. Mainly due to those monoids and their hilarity at everything. I just can't.
And their tantrums.
Yes. If anyone does, after you've listened to this and you go on to watch the Ark, do let us know if you find the same things funny that we do, because some of it is hilarious, unintentionally, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Next week is going to be The Runaway Bride, so looking forward to your thoughts and views on that. So look out for the social posts on there to get your reviews in. So make sure you give that a watch over the next week. Head over to our website, www.bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. You can listen to all of the previous episodes on there. Plus, you can link off to all of the subscription platforms and apps and channels. However you want to listen to our show is fine. There's a big button to subscribe on iTunes. If you're an iTunes listener, it would be great to grab a review and a rating off you. That really helps us. But otherwise, just click on one of the other options or do a search. We're on most places. Make sure you check out Adam's channel, The Geek's Handbag.
Yes, should be doing a bit of filming this afternoon. As it happens. Yeah.
So do a search for The Geek's Handbag on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all that jazz. Loads and loads of good content from Adam. Cracking videos, really cool stuff. You won't be disappointed, because I often go on there to watch your latest video, but then I just end up watching like 7 or 8 of them at a time, and I've lost like 45 minutes.
That's what happens.
Thank you so much again for listening to our waffle about London Comic Con and all that stuff. We'll probably give you a rundown on whichever one we go to next.
Yes.
And so next week, The Runaway Bride. We'll look forward to your thoughts and feelings on that one. Until then, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember... And remember...